Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm joined by Ross Hollebon, writer for Fantha Tracks and host of the Album Cockpit Podcast, to discuss episode 6 from the Acolyte titled Teach/Corrupt. If you are a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Also, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. What another amazing episode of The Acolyte we have this week. And of course, our friend of the show, Ross Hollebon, is here to chat all about it. So I'm thrilled to have him on the podcast to break down in length this sexy episode of Star Wars. Yes, a new word here on Force Ghost Conversations, that this episode really goes into the deep end of the seductive nature of the dark side and how that can influence somebody into the choices they make. Anywho, before we get into that conversation, let's chat about some of the Cloud City gossip, the news that has come out in the Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy over the past week here. And frankly, the only thing that I was able to discover is that Star Wars Outlaws now has a release date. August 30th of this year, 2024, is when the game will be released. So if you're a fan of the other stuff that Star Wars has put out lately for the next gen consoles, then I think this will be right up your alley. So August 30th is when this game comes out. I believe it's like a kind of an open world game. You'll be able to do a lot of mix and matches for the quests that you go on and the adventures that you undertake. And I know it's going to be a long game. I think it's like 30 hours or so if you want to complete just even the main storyline. So it's going to be a lot of fun gameplay going on. I think we'll get it around the 30th as well. And it's going to take us a while, just because the way I game is a lot different than others. I like to take my time, and just generally I'm focused on a lot of other stuff at the same time too. So we'll get to that game as we are able to then. And of course, we'll talk about it on the podcast when it is when I'm fully completed with it, at least the main storyline, and I'm able to make some comments about it overall. Anywho, that is the news I had for this week. Let's get into this episode here. Ross is fantastic. The conversation is fantastic. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. So full spoiler warning ahead for Teach/Corrupt episode 6 of The Acolyte. You've now been forewarned. And of course, make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms after listening to this podcast. So just search Force Ghost Conversations and we'll be there in some capacity. And let's go into the conversation now. Stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. Ooh, what a doozy of an episode we had this week. What a fun, endearing, and dare I say, sexy episode of Star Wars. Perhaps the sexiest episode of Star Wars to date. Of course, we are not alone here in this conversation to break down Teach/Corrupt here. We have friend of the show, returning guest. He is the host of the Album Cockpit Podcast and writer for Fantha Tracks, and just general good person all around. Ross Hollebon, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Anthony, I'm fantastic. As you know, just came back from a quick trip to New York where I got to do all sorts of fantastic things in Manhattan and Brooklyn. But included in that was rewatching this episode on the plane on my phone. So that you can never get enough. So it's fantastic.
That's right. As was intended, right? The viewing experience for the masses on your phone. Well, Ross, before we get into the episode itself, episode 6 of The Acolyte, which again, for those listening at home, full spoiler warning, we're going to get right into the juicy goodness of this episode pretty soon here. So you've been warned to go watch the episode now if you haven't seen it yet, and then come right back to this point in the podcast. Otherwise, you're going to be spoiled for everything after this point. So you've been warned again. But before we get into that this episode discussion itself, I want to ask you about your experience with the High Republic thus far, the time period that this series takes place in. And, have you been keeping up with the books? Have you read any High Republic books? Have you maybe watched an episode or two of Young Jedi Adventures? What is your experience so far with the High Republic before the Acolyte started a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I've definitely read 5 or 6 of the books.
Okay, great.
But that's even going from the children's books.
Love it.
Right off the bat. So as phase 1 was coming out, and we get to learn about this amazing Project Luminous thing and all the amazing storytellers and world crafters that are Charles Soule, Kevin Scott, Claudia
Hmm.
Gray, Justina Ireland. Um, you know, I bought right in. And then maybe a little bit after phase 1, I was just kind of like, I got to pump on the brakes
Yeah.
because there's too much coming out at once, and I'm trying to keep up with what's happening here.
Life was happening, and a lot of stuff was happening at the same time, right?
Yeah, so I just kind of I've gotten into the stories and got to know some of the Jedi, and just how amazing the High Republic era was, and everything that's occurring there. Saying, okay, how does this lead into what I got as a kid?
Hmm.
And I think it's fascinating going back that far. So I think getting the Acolyte, getting Young Jedi Adventures, getting these different elements to kind of fill in those gaps of, yeah, there was more history there, the same way that we can look at world history.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just always fascinated by that. So the fact that we're doing it, the fact that we had already been introduced to Vernestra Rowe
Yes.
and the lightsaber, her variation of the lightsaber, which may come up a little bit later, so I won't get into that
Absolutely.
too far. Um, but it's just cool, and getting to know those characters and getting to know these were the Jedi at the height of things, and there were so many of them.
Hmm.
So I'm thankful for Lucasfilm, uh, Penguin Random House, and in the Star Wars book group,
Yeah.
and everyone who's working on this together. The the experts that are Project Luminous, uh, and bringing that in. So I haven't read The Eye of Darkness or Temptation of the Force, but otherwise I've got all the big books and then most
Okay.
of the young adult, and even some of the comics.
Well, say Eye of Darkness is my favorite book so far of
Okay.
not just the High Republic, but all of Star Wars, and it may even be topping like a top 10 list I have of my favorite books of all time outside of Star Wars in general. So if that's the praise that you need to dive into that book, then go on
Yeah.
ahead with that.
And George Mann's fantastic. So getting that makes me excited about when I will dive back in.
Exactly, exactly. And go at your own pace too. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
have a fun time with it. And I love hearing people's different experiences with it. Some people have read absolutely every page that has ever come out of the High Republic. Some people have kind of picked and chosen what they wanted to read over the last couple of years. And some people have not read a single thing. And all are fine entry points into Star Wars. And it'll be fun to see 15 years from now or 20 years from now, right? Whatever celebration we're doing at that time, and everyone gets together again. And you'll see these new fans there that are around 20 or 30 at that time, and they'll be like, yeah, the Acolyte was my entry point, or the High Republic was my beginning of Star Wars, right? I read one of these little kid books and at the library, and that's what got me into this galaxy far, far away. And I think it'll be just so cool to have a whole new set of fans come in, like the prequels did, and the sequel trilogy also created a new set of fans, and hopefully this also generates that new set of fandom that we're looking to keep this train going and all that. So thanks for sharing your experiences with this. Well, I believe, Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, were you at Star Wars Celebration Chicago?
I was
Were
actually,
you there when this was announced, Project Luminous?
yes.
You
Uh,
were
well, not
incredible.
not in the room, but I was there hearing. I
You
had
were at large
actually
there, yeah.
I had actually volunteered slash was working for Reed Pop.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's how that's how I got in. I had bought a
Okay.
1-day pass, but then they made the call out for people, and I was just like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I can do this." And I'd love to dive into something and really experience it.
Yeah.
And there was no better way than doing that. And the hard work that Reed Pop and all the volunteers that come into it, it is
Hmm.
just like, hey, you're getting pushed in the pool and figure it out. And having to show people where the podcast stage was and learn how to map out the convention center in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to fans from Japan, Australia, and everyone just felt like family. So yeah, uh, that was my first mass Star Wars event beyond theater things
Oh,
or
amazing.
seeing, uh, back in the DC area, seeing things on display at the Smithsonian and
Hmm.
shows like that. And that was really life changing.
Incredible. So how did you handle the snow? Like as a volunteer, or were you like, were people asking you all the questions about weather and stuff like that? And you're like, I don't know.
It was because that was the last day, I believe. And it was just kind of that magic touch. Like for me, the first absolute moment of magic in Star Wars for me is Hoth
Hmm.
in the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back. So that was the
Agreed.
first one I remember seeing in the theater. I saw A New Hope at a drive-in and probably fell asleep because I was so young.
Yeah.
Um, but when Empire Strikes Back was coming, like that was my movie, and so just snow at a celebration just meant more because
Hmm.
of that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun tie-in to all of us here. Do you happen to remember what I'm pulling all these memories here from your life, Ross. What was do you know what drive-in? Is that drive-in still exist in the DMV area that you happened to went to? Because I know a few that exist still in that grand area, and I'm curious if it was perhaps the same one.
It was actually in Western New York.
Western
So
New York. Wow.
my my mom is originally from that area.
Okay.
So we were visiting family and we're just like, "Hey, we're going." So I bet my cousins would know which one it is, and I'm assuming based on the area that it may even
Yeah,
still be there.
it might. You never know.
Um, but again, one of those things where just like, "Hey, this is going on," and I was probably enthralled until my eyes were
And
shut.
then darkness came, and
Yeah, it happened quick. I put on the helmet and it was over.
Yep, yep. I love it. I love it. Like so many people have experienced Star Wars for the first time in the drive-in setting. Like I think our friend Coffee with Kenobi, Dan Zer,
Yeah.
also had his first experience at a drive-in, and I love that the tradition still. The pandemic, for all the horrible things that it caused, the one positive might be that the resurgence of drive-in theaters came back, and by God, I love it. I
It's an
love it.
event.
It is an event. It's a great way to just get in your car and enjoy a film and then
Yeah.
get away. Oftentimes it's double feature too. So you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
two for your buck.
Super fun.
Super fun, good snacks and all that. Anywho, go to your local drive-in if you have one, folks. But let's get back into the episode here, Ross. Um, I got a question before we actually like dive into the meat of itself. Like coming out of episode 5 last week night, and then heading into this one, and your first experience watching it, how did you feel? Because I had a variety of emotions going through this, and I'm curious if any of those were similar to what you felt as you went through this. So, kind of walk me through your overall emotional status as you went through the episode.
After all of the excitement and action of that previous episode, um, which is great and fun, those aren't my favorite things. Like I love the mental components
Okay. Yes.
of
Yes.
things. So this episode was everything to me.
Mm-hmm.
This
I hear
was
you.
okay, all of this just went down, and the true story of who a person is how they react in tough times.
Yeah. Okay.
So seeing how everyone was going to react coming out of this, and especially with the twins swapping roles with
Mm-hmm.
different places, as soon as it was ending that way, I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait until the next episode to figure out who figures out what when. But then also knowing that there's this deep, dark secret brewing.
Yes.
It's gonna get shared. It better get shared before the end of the season, or before the season ends. Um, but I love that, and that's what I love. I really enjoyed Russian Doll
Mm-hmm.
with Leslie Headland. So her style of storytelling and a little bit more of a Pulp Fiction Tarantino esque,
Right.
or even Christopher Nolan with Memento. Um, this isn't linear storytelling.
No.
So it makes you think and it teases you all along. And it led into just this episode that this one had me on the edge of my seat the most
Yeah.
in terms of, ooh, is this going to happen now?
Yeah.
Did this get introduced? Um, and then even getting someone from the Galactic Senate getting involved this time, I was just like, oh, here we're really playing with fire. So let's
Oh yeah.
buckle in for, not only for episode 6, but now with 2 more left. I I just expect both of these to be, world breakers.
I agree. I agree. And I think when I first finished watching the episode on Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, I just sat in my seat and I said, "That was juicy."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't wait to rewatch that. I think I just put my hands together and was just like, yes,
You had
give
a
me more."
a Mr. Burns moment.
Yes, yes, exactly. I definitely Mr. Burns it. Um, and I don't know about you, Ross, but like you've noted that there was kind of like the concurrent storylines of the May and Master Soul group, and then it would cut back to the Stranger and Osha. Those were kind of how they would switch back and forth with a little bit of Vernestra peppered in here.
Yeah.
Um, anytime that well, I should say the only time I really felt a sense of safety and comfort while watching the episode was when Osha and the Stranger were on screen.
Yeah.
Any other time, I was just so on edge and tense. I was like, I don't know if I can trust Master Soul at this point. I don't know if anyone's being truthful. Was May deceived? Does Soul recognize that this is not Osha in front of him? Like, can he see the tattoo? Is he playing along with this? What's Basil doing here?
Yeah.
How are all these players gonna get out of this, or will they get out of this? And then the Vernestra thing, and will he say like, I came in contact with a Sith Master, and will that open up a whole new can of worms for Star Wars canon?
Right.
I don't know why I just felt so tense and on edge, the edge of my seat. And then as soon as they'd flip back, and then I'd sit back and I'd relax, like, oh, there's nothing's gonna go wrong here, and she's with the dark side guy. I'm like, how does this work? How is this dichotomy even happening here? And it was just blowing my mind that somehow Leslie Headland and team is pulling this off. It completely flipped a switch on your expectations of how the Jedi and the dark side are supposed to work and interact with each other. Because as we watch episode 4, you're like, yeah, the Jedi are the good guys, and
Well,
now you're
and
getting a
that's what
little bit
we've
of
been led
the
to believe.
contrary. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that gets summed up so well by whether it's Kimir or the Stranger, however we're gonna refer to him, where Osha says that's the path to the dark side, and
Hmm.
he merely looks at her calmly. Semantics.
Yeah.
It's what you teach to be right versus wrong. And is someone telling you a certain way? And this goes back to Osha and May's mothers in the
Yeah.
coven of saying,
Yeah.
like, wait, what do you mean we can only use this way?
Hmm.
And we have a problem because you say that it's an issue because we're teaching our kids this, but you're going to take our kids to teach them that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's a much bigger societal, cultural
Oh,
thing. But I think it's such an important question to ask and to explore. And I love how it's happening. And it has been the slow burn to get there.
yeah.
Um, but it's been done in a smart way.
Exactly. This episode is like when you take that first bite of like an apple or a peach, right? And you're like, that's so juicy. I want more. This is that episode, is that first bite right there. You're like, I'm just scratching the surface here. My teeth are sinking into it, and they're sucking up the surface level juices here. We have so much more to learn and to explore with all the storylines as they're going now in this different directions here. And I'm all here for it.
Yeah. Well, and life's not linear.
No, it's not.
So I love it when storytelling isn't linear.
Yeah, it makes
So
sense
because
too.
there are different things, if it rains for 10 minutes, that can throw off the trajectory of what you were about to do
Anything.
for the day.
Yeah.
So just being able to read and react and break everything down and say, okay, here's the direction, here's the problem I'm going to solve now, or here's how I'm going to solve it.
Yeah.
And that's fun to watch people do, and to normalize someone recognizing an issue and working through it without having to go over the top. And it's not the Real Housewives of Alderaan. It's people on an island figuring something out.
Yes, yes. Unknown planet, as they would call
Yeah.
it. And to your point too, episode 5 was great, spectacular. And I think this makes it even better after knowing what happens in episode 6, right? I love it when an episode comes out, like you said, that delves into the how and the why and just gives us a bit more of like the inner workings of the culture, the character thoughts, what's going on here, right? The moments where we have time to breathe, right? The master soul looking at the contraptions that aren't working and just having a moment where he's just like putting his fist into the machinery and just being like, what's going on here, who am I? Just, you can see all that going on in his brain, and the episode allows itself to breathe, to have those moments of contemplation that to an audience it screams. And then you go back and rewatch episode 5 again and you're like, it's all there, it's all there. It just makes it even better.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. So this episode is called Teach Corrupt. In your opinion, who do you think was being taught, and who is the one being corrupted? Because I think people have surmised that these um, episode titles, whether they be the slash ones, not day and night, I think those are an outlier on this point. But whenever it's kind of slashed, it's one person's perspective, whether it be May or Osha's. So I'm just curious, have you put any thought into the title itself here? What does it mean? Who's being taught, who's being corrupted here?
Yeah, I think there are varying levels that interweave with each other. So the three main bullet points that I kind of have in this regard is Master Soul versus Master Soul.
Yeah.
This is internal.
I love an internal battle.
This is the Jedi versus the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever faction of Sith that he
Dark side.
believes
Yeah,
he
right.
is. Because would he get slaughtered if he ran into Palpatine right now?
Perhaps.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, oh, well, I'm this, and you know, everyone has to figure that out in their own timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But this also introduces, and it's kind of been leading to this a little bit, I think in very subtle, smart ways as well. This is the Galactic Senate versus the Jedi too.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Oh, such a little thing that they threw in this episode, but it just has so much more ramifications than what it's
yeah.
leading on.
Well, and getting so here, I'll throw some Album Cockpit Podcast stuff just based off of, I'm sure, Wikipedia, and they talk about the data bank.
Mm-hmm.
But the senator is Sedwa Chuant, who is talking to Vernestra, and this isn't something that I knew happened before.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess for the Abednego style character,
Yeah.
all their names are influenced from Beastie Boys songs.
I thought you might like that little reference there that people have been pointing out. Yeah.
So just learning that over the course of this week, because it's not something I had paid attention to before, but just looking a little extra and saying, okay, so this character's name is exactly from So What You Want is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, but he's the one that comes out and says the Jedi are always transparent with the Senate.
Yes. It's literally
And
Vernestra's like, we have not.
and Soul is out there saying, I need to come clean. And we know
Mm-hmm.
it's something that Torben has dealt with. Kelneka put himself in exile. And Indara, is that why she's,
Kind of
at a
off on her own too. Yeah.
at a bar with a rough crowd?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're all hiding. Like, something's eating at them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I keep wondering, when are we going to learn? When are we going to learn? So that has been the very nice slow tease that the Acolyte has been for me.
And it's a direct through line to episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where they're like, we should inform the Senate of our inability to, understand, read, connect to the Force. And then they're like, well, no, our enemies will multiply if we do that. Like, those are political choices that they just made when they serve this grand republic. They are not just like another political group that's appointed. No, they are they've aligned themselves with them, and they serve the people that are elected within the Senate first and foremost, and of course the larger galaxy that elects them. But that's a choice to not do that. Could you imagine if our police didn't do that? Didn't inform the public of major things that they did? Like, there'd be outcries.
Well, if people found out,
yeah, that's true.
Is the planning already in place to quash that coming down? Like, I think one of the brilliant and terrifying aspects of this happening right now, not wanting to get too political or anything, but there's an individual who's like, no, I'm staying in this right now, as a lot of other people are like, you may be unfit right now, much less 4 years from now.
Well, yeah.
And it's probably going to impact a few of us. So I just think it's always good to question things. I am a big believer in questioning authority to hold people accountable, not to be difficult.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think Star Wars as a property does that very well.
That's at the core of what Lucas would agree with, I think.
Yeah.
Why you put this together? Like, it's literally the rebellion against the Empire.
Yeah.
We addressed our grievances, and you didn't do anything about it, so we're going to rebel against you. And that's how we got to this point. And I think, like, when they're like, we're going to put up they're going to set up a oversight committee to come and do a holistic review, an audit, you should say, of the Jedi. I'm like, first off, great, that's awesome. What are they going to discover here? Second off, what's going to happen if they find something they don't like, right? What are the Jedi going to step aside? Clearly they don't, or do they cover up stuff? The mind just goes wild with the possibilities here, but it's just, again, it's so juicy what this could mean for everything going around. Like, I can't believe the Jedi have enemies. Like, that's something they introduced in the earlier episodes of this season, and why they're kind of being coy with what they tell even the council, the Senate, all that stuff about things. And now as we're going through this, we're like, oh, maybe there's a lot more that the Jedi are hiding along the way than is led on to believe. I don't know. This is some of the most fascinating stuff, and it's only given like 30 seconds of airtime.
Right.
But it could lead to larger ramifications, not just for the story, but all of Star Wars leading up to the Phantom Menace that we know of at this point.
Yeah, and it's not the person kicking and screaming and saying, look at me and listen to my story sometimes. It's what are you reading in the tea leaves? And hey, is anyone paying attention to what's happening over here? Because this group's so excited that you're distracted by this thing happening or this outlandish thing happening, and they have to be so loud about their response to get back to it, and other things happen in quiet. And it's the Washington Post says democracy dies in darkness.
That's right.
And it makes you think, and you hope everyone will be a great critical thinker and pay attention to everything that's happening in an episode or a series like this. But maybe you want to translate that into the day-to-day as well. And then I'll get away from the soapbox.
Hey, I love it. Let's go on the soapbox, because again, as you mentioned, that real world example there, Democracy Dies in Darkness, that paper is funded by one of the most successful business persons and conglomerate corporations in the globe. So again, everything has an agenda, everything is tied to something, everything is, you just got to see the tea leaves, as you were saying, and realize what's out there, and review it against other things that are going around, and see where the truth lies somewhere in between all of that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love where this conversation is going already, because like when I saw that episode title, I was like, I don't know what to make of this, especially after watching the episode too. Because sometimes it's like, okay, that's clear, that's on the point. Like, I think Book of Boba Fett, right? When the Cad Bane arrives, I think the episode's called "From the Desert Comes a Stranger." Like, okay, that's him right there. That's the stranger in the desert. It's easy, and this one is a bit more abstract, which is a lot better for conversation
Yeah.
than just being like, "Yep, that's him." and to even get into another juicier conversation bit here, we can talk about the stranger and what he does in this episode specifically, right? The sexy part of Star Wars at this point. He does his best in this episode to seduce Osha, emphasis on seduce, to the dark side. And what did you make of his attempts at this point in trying to make, it seems to me like his goal is to make Osha his pupil, which is an interesting way to phrase that rather than acolyte or apprentice. Definitely not the way the Jedi would frame it, but what did you think?
Well, I think it gives us one of the most amazing shots I think ever in Star Wars. It's something that
Do tell.
well, and it's after kind of, there's the little bit of joking of, hey, you've got this ripped guy coming out of the water naked. Like,
He
some
earned it.
people are going nuts for this.
That's right.
And good on him for whatever he eats and however he works out.
That's right.
And
Hasn't
it's
eaten a
like, it
carb in
makes me
5
think,
years.
like, yeah, I'm gonna put down this donut right now as I'm watching this. But even the writing here, and that's something I've had some issues with the series
Mhm.
in terms of cadence and some of the writing.
Sure.
There is none of that this episode. Like,
Yeah.
it like was on point to me, in my opinion. But when he is coming out and he says a special relationship, isn't it?
Hmm.
Master and pupil. And the camera frames, it kind of moves and frames to get them both in it and have the two shot. And it has Osha on the left on a little bit lower ground,
Yeah.
and Kamir, the stranger, on the right, just slightly higher up, eye contact, her going up, him going down as he's saying master and pupil.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, oh, this is like, give me this every day of the week. This was the shot and the line
Yeah.
for me, and it's at 11:25 of the episode. So
We
even
still
if
got
you just
20
want
more
to
minutes to go. Yeah.
go check it out, like, I had it on freeze frame, and I was just like, this is the perfect shot for what's happening right now.
Mhm.
So, corruption, maybe. Um, Teaching, that's another way, but it is, and we know how the Sith operate. We know the buttons
Yeah.
they push and the things they try to find to manipulate. But I think one of the beautiful things that is coming out of all of this is there ever just good and just bad?
Mhm.
There are semantics. There are different
Sure.
vantage points. That's why Ahsoka is so popular, because she is middle ground.
Mhm.
And she questions, like, well, okay, you're saying this is good, but then you treated this person this way.
Mm.
And we get that, you know, through the sisters, and I'm not thinking of their name right now, from the animated series that Ahsoka befriends.
The Martez sisters?
Yes,
I
the
can't remember
Martell
the
sisters,
exact
I'm sorry.
names of them. Yes, but
Um,
I got their last name.
but during their stories, when they're like, "Oh no, the Jedi, they ruined our lives
Mhm.
because they did whatever they had to do to achieve their goal,
Yeah, they're trying to win the war.
but they left this wake of destruction, and they
Mhm.
said it's fine because we needed to do this.
Yeah.
So at what cost
Hmm.
is what it becomes. So I think that this this trend in the storytelling, and looking at this all powerful, don't question this group kind of thing, has become that major theme, and it's just built more and more through this right now. So I love how that continues to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. And that's a great, you note that specific point in this episode where the master and pupil relationship as talked about. And the seduction that is done in this episode is poignantly directed at Osha to get her to a place that I think that the stranger wants her to be, potentially as next pupil, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's vastly different because this is from what we've seen so far in Star Wars, right? We only have really two other instances of how someone has been seduced to the dark side, right? So Anakin being the most primary example, where his seduction is through a power to be attained in order to save his loved ones, right? It's mirrored in this good full intent that leads one down a dark path to become a fascist, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren, perhaps the other example of this feeling of helplessness, where I have this family, this lineage that's above me that I'm not sure I can amount to in my lifetime, right? I am the son of this great war general. I'm the son of this politician that saved the rebellion. My uncle is the Jedi Master, Luke Skywalker. How am I gonna ever
No
amount to
pressure
this?
there.
And no pressure there, right? My grandfather's Darth Vader too. Like, all this is, I'm a part of this really amazing lineage, and where do I fit in all this? Oh, I can turn the dark side and use my power to achieve what I need to in order to get to my
Mm-hmm.
ultimate goals here. So those are seductive ways in different methods, but this really relies on that love angle of seduction, right? Almost that lustful, seductive nature, right? Done via the shirtless scenes, of course. You can go whenever you want. I'm not holding you here prisoner. You're the one with the weapon here, right? That suave way of communicating back to Osha, being like, I don't
Start
have
swimming
any.
now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't have a weapon. You can kill me right now if you want. All that is there, and he notes that, like, I don't know if he was picking up on this at what point, but like there's that Jackie thing that he throws in there. Is like, you killed Jackie. He's like, did you think you were going to go anywhere with that?
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't going to leave the order, same as your master, right? Maybe there is something to that. Maybe she's developing feelings for him. He clearly still has an attachment to her, whether it's still just like a master apprentice kind of hold there on that front, in that relationship, or if she saw it as something potentially being more than that. I don't know. But those are things that the Jedi can't do, whereas he is like, I don't care what you do. He's literally offering freedom of choice. And he even says that, like, what is it? I think she says to a degree, like, what does the dark side give you? And he's like, freedom. Like, he doesn't have to be stuck in this dogmatic principle of, all right, we don't act in this situation, we don't act in this situation. And then that's mirrored over with, the May and Osha, not the May and Osha, but the May of it all with Master Soul, where she's literally at the end of the episode in chains, not chained, but she is tied down to a chair.
Yeah,
and she can't go anywhere. Like, the Jedi, the people that are supposed to be good in this world, have restrained the person to not be free to do what they want. Whereas this dark side user, who's supposed to be the person of great evil and power, that shouldn't be just out in the world just killing people randomly left and right, is the one that's like, I don't care if you might want to wait till it's low tide before you go out to the ship over there and fly away, but it's up to you. You can say if you want. I don't care. It's such a unique way to seduce somebody that only works specifically for Osha, but it's so cool to see it because it's a 1-to-1 seduction.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, hey, you haven't left yet.
Yeah, I see you're staying around here.
Let me lightsaber against me, and you can turn it on and do what you wanted to do.
Yep. Let me tell you a little bit more too as we're going through this here. Let me just add some more words here. Have you ever heard about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Right. So all of that's there, and he's brilliant in his delivery and his calm, collected demeanor that is going against everything Saul. Mm-hmm. That you brought up earlier, where it is someone has utmost confidence and the other one is struggling to figure it all out.
Absolutely. Saul is like, he's lost. He's questioning everything. What have I done? What do I need to do? How did I get to this point? How could all this have happened? I'm a Jedi. This is not supposed to be what happens here.
Well,
Whereas
and
the
then
stranger,
is
yeah,
he
go ahead.
going? He talks about wanting to go. I need to go in front of the Jedi
Yeah,
Council.
I need to tell them the truth.
Who it seems like through what else we know about Star Wars through the years is he probably
Hmm.
doesn't get to give that report.
I think so. I think so.
And at this point, who stops him? Is that the stranger or is that Vernestra?
That's a really great question, and that's what the episode brings up, right? They hint at this potential, like, well, who could have done this? Soul could have, and then Vernestra is like, "How dare you say such an accusation?" But wink, wink, you might be right on that one.
Yeah.
It might be good enough to fit the story we needed to tell, so that we can keep our power as the defenders of the Republic,
Yeah.
which
No
offers
one
up,
wants to lose
yeah,
power. It
no one
doesn't
wants to.
matter uh, whatever altruism is involved in it. You make excuses to say, "Yeah, but we're right
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they're wrong, so you should believe in us." Even if it takes little white lies to keep that truth or that expected truth a truth.
Yeah. I mean, it could
So,
potentially make what Palpatine says in Revenge of the Sith true in a way,
yeah,
right? Where the Sith are selfless or selfish, and they only act for their own power. And then it's Palpatine's like, and the Jedi don't. This
right?
could be an exact direct pull that he's thinking of. Is this moment right here, and how this was covered up,
And
or
it
was it
is
covered up? We don't know
it,
yet, but
it's cyclical history.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's just again, hey, it's gonna keep happening.
It's gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep happening, unfortunately. And with each passing episode, it becomes clear that, again, we talked about this a little bit here, that Soul isn't really truthful about everything that's happened on Brendock all those 16 years ago. And at least when I watched this episode the first time, perhaps the most puzzling thing for me was that he departs as soon as Vernestra arrives, and I'm like, whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why is he doing that? He was trying to get in contact with them this entire time. What changed in his mind here? What's going on here? What do you think he's doing? Where is he going? What's he doing? And does any of his actions here give you pause, Ross?
I think he has felt obviously guilt. He and the entire group of Jedi from Brendock feel
Hmm.
guilt. And now that the other three have been there's a part where the stranger talks about freedom.
Yeah.
Soul is trapped by the truth. He does
Yes. Oh.
not he does not have freedom because he is carrying this 16-year-old burden,
Oh.
and one of the two main people that can that I believe he thinks can help cleanse him of this, he now has it in
Hmm.
control and can say, I can make my confession and make things right, or at least feel better about
Hmm.
myself. I don't have
Hmm.
to drink the poison.
Yes.
I don't have to sit there and put up with, the different ways that a Sith could kill a Jedi.
Hmm.
It's almost him coming to terms with things and saying, here's my only real opportunity to get rid of this is to apologize and explain what happened to someone who I thought was dead.
Hmm.
Um, so I think he is seeking the freedom that the stranger boasts of.
Right, right. Professor Hollebon, you put that on a bumper sticker, right? You trapped by the truth. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. You
Yeah,
just put into words like,
I'm just recognizing it. Like Leslie,
oh,
Ms. Headland is the one that put that out there. So it's
oh my gosh.
and for any critiques I've had along the way, you know, it is she has been reading the pictures over the course of the first two times through the lineup,
Yeah,
and now she's just mashing it because she knows the tendencies that are occurring.
that's right. And 2 miles an hour of velocity are off the fastball now. So as soon as one comes down and in, she's hitting that out of the park, which she absolutely did in this episode.
Absolutely.
And do you think they're maybe going to Brendock to like? Do you think that's maybe what they'll do in the next episode? Here is that's where they're heading off to, and then they'll like, let's relive this. Let's go back to the beginning.
I don't even know if I had thought about them going there, but that would be fascinating.
It would
Kind
be.
of the same way that Vernestra was putting the battle together in her mind.
Yeah.
Seeing all and her showing up there and that group of Jedi showing up and realizing that Soul is still alive, but that all these dead Jedi bodies are just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what she's reading yet. Was he fleeing for his life? Was it him? I don't believe she believes it was him, but the fact that her Padawan made that accusation or alluded to that accusation just adds to that tension there. And it is...
Yeah, because if they're thinking it, we're thinking it as an audience, right?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes sense.
And we've seen death by lightsaber, but, almost politically, they're taking death by paper cut.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting both levels of this right now, and that's how you tear down an institution.
Exactly. Oh, and we're just seeing the seeds being planted here for Order 66 100 years later.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying, but awesome to see at the same time.
It's the long game.
It is the long game. The Sith have been playing this for quite some time. Quite some time. Palpatine is ready to say unlimited power. That man, he knew his goals have been achieved in that moment.
Yeah.
And this is where we start.
Because even the stranger here, I believe he alludes to a master.
I think so. Yep.
So who is that right now?
Who is the stranger's master? Who is the stranger? Because he's like, I'm a former Jedi.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
It's so awesome.
And he shows when he's shirtless, of course, you see the scars on his back, which look kind of like it was done by a lightsaber, but I don't know of a lightsaber that would curve in such a way if it were not for a whip to do such a thing like that.
Funny how that comes up a couple times here.
Yeah, we saw a particular lightsaber whip in action in this episode by none other than Vernestra Rwoh, who's kind of being seedy about what she's actually doing right now.
Yeah, there is not, even though the senator says the Jedi are being transparent, she doesn't appear to be.
And who's to say that the Jedi gave him that scar? Dare I throw another curveball into this?
Yeah.
Could Vernestra perhaps be a fallen Jedi working amidst the... I don't know. It's juicy.
That's the beauty of this. Yeah, that would definitely melt some minds if that happened.
It really would. And that's why he's trying to find an acolyte, a pupil to take over so that they can, with their combined strength, overthrow the master and then continue the rule of two as they are until they're overthrown then.
Well, and again, this is rumor mill type stuff, but reading something just on an Instagram post that Leslie Headland has up to 5 seasons in her mind already.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh. What more could be if that's true? I don't know if it is. So I will put that caveat there.
Right. Who knows if true or if it's still in production? Like Andor was supposed to be 4 seasons, right? And now it's just 2. Right? Yeah. They condensed the story. So who knows if it was originally supposed to be that? Someone heard that. I'm all for it. So give me 5 seasons if that's the plan. But
yeah, if it's going this way, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Keep telling your story, girl. You're doing great.
Yeah.
And really, Ross, my last question here is about what I would say is even the most juicy part of this episode, which is the ending where Osha puts on the stranger's helmet. Is this action foreshadowing the future, perhaps? Or, what do you think happens next? They spent a lot of time as the episode ended focusing on this moment.
It is magic to hear her breathing in there.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
So beautiful sound work by everyone working on that. here I've got the first thing that I'm going to bring up. If you haven't read The Rise of Kylo Ren,
Mm-hmm.
5-issue comic book series by Charles Soule with artist Will Sliney, you should probably do that right away,
Yeah.
because every time that we have seen, well, maybe it's only these 2 episodes, 5 and 6, I have thought of the Knights of Ren
Mm-hmm.
so much when the stranger is in action.
Yeah.
Um, and it also ties into Kylo Ren. So Ren is basically the lightsaber
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what's guiding them. So I've taken it to this level, like with the helmet of the Sith are also very good at almost the Voldemort with a Horcrux.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to put my soul in this thing so it has evil and I can stay alive from it. And that's some of how Palpatine may be there all these films later and years later.
Maybe.
The Cortosis metal helmet, but then we're getting to watch the kintsugi Japanese approach to welding the helmet,
Yeah.
where it's growth through destruction. So we've watched Kylo Ren do this with a helmet, and
Mm-hmm.
we've also seen shirtless Kylo Ren.
Yep. Sure
We
have.
have seen the shirtless stranger. We have seen the stranger working on the helmet. The power of 2 there. And I had a quick Instagram exchange with the guys at Star Wars sessions earlier today, saying, "Are we seeing? Could we potentially be seeing where the Knights of Ren come from?"
Very well could.
So I think all of that ties into this helmet.
Yeah.
And the approach here, and go check out that comic series. I'm probably completely wrong, but that doesn't mean there's just like, you know what? There's at least a little bit of a tease here, or some relativity.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's fun, and that makes it each episode more exciting for me, being like, "Ooh, are we going to get this?" And
Yeah.
it may go in a completely different direction, but it's fun to think right now.
Well, Ross, you're not wrong until you're wrong, right?
Right?
Until we're told that this is the case, then you're technically not wrong. You're just speculating on what a potential avenue is. And you're making great connections here to Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. And then in episode 5, we heard Kylo Ren's theme for a bit. Various motifs, which people have pointed out, and Leslie Headland has acknowledged. She's like, yeah, that's there for a reason.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe this is the potential start of the Knights of Ren. For everyone's assuming that this is the stranger is an apprentice to the master and their Sith. But what if it's like a Maul situation, right? Where cast aside, you're no longer a strong apprentice for me anymore. Whoever the master is has taken on another person, and this is just a Ronin nomad, kind of Ahsoka-esque, no longer Sith, no longer just dark side user, going off across the galaxy, and is like, hey, I would like to teach somebody what I'm doing here, just so that I feel like I'm useful, or we can learn from each other.
Right.
Maybe this is the origins of the Knights of Ren, and wherever they're at, this is their home base, and then they go from there on that one, and it leads 150, 70 years later to the events of the sequel trilogy. So, I mean, all that could be on the table there, and that's the exciting thing, is that we don't know yet. We got still 2 episodes and many seasons, perhaps more, to actually get the nitty-gritty down of what this actually is. But they're leaving us with so much to it's just like, I keep going back to this fruit analogy. Like, we still have like we just taken one bite. We barely even sucked our teeth into this thing. There's a whole lot more to eat on this
And
plate here.
I think we've gone from the juicy peach to the watermelon field.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotten even bigger.
Lots of large juicy bites around with each step that you take, and it is get your napkins and your shirt sleeves ready, because there's lots of wiping
Yeah, exactly.
away based off of what's being put on the table here.
Look, I can't believe we've only got 2 more episodes left of this season, and it's been a wonderful journey up to this point. At least, you and I both have liked this show so far, and we've been standing behind it, and it's been paying off for us as fans to get to this point. And then seeing the seeds that they were laying, and now we're here, and there's 2 episodes left. Who knows where we're going with that? Ross, do you have a thought about how this maybe wraps up here? Is there any inclination at this point? What are we doing, guys?
Yeah, I think by the end of this season, we really get that first political attack of the Jedi.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
And it is pointed out that, hey, they've been lying to us.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have more power over them. And this is, I don't know, this is a relative storyline to the X-Men or mutants.
Sure. Yeah.
In the MCU. This is, hey, if we can't be in power if there are all these powerful people not being held in check by us.
Yep, exactly.
So it's control. It is who has the right to use these things, brought up by the Coven, brought up by the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you get to decide how I can use this power or when I can use this power? And that's humanity.
Yeah. The undermining of Jedi authority.
Yeah. So it is a constant battle. And you know what? You can have 2 groups, 3 groups, 5 groups, all thinking they're doing things for the right reasons. And that doesn't mean at the end of the day that any of their rationale is true.
Mm-hmm.
Or, at the end of the day, who's the judge?
Maybe that's a great question. Who is the judge? At this point, it's been the Jedi. The Jedi have been the judge with no jury.
And a lot of jurors are showing up.
And that's why people are mad. That's why people are mad. That's right. I would love if it's like some of the Trade Federation folks that are like a part of this exploratory audit committee that are coming in to check in what the Jedi are actually doing over there.
Well, and is it the guy from the very first episode?
Yeah, exactly. He's coming right back in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you Jedi coming right back for you. Would love that. Would love just like, is Masameda alive? He can come in. Yeah. Come on over, right? Like who's alive at this time? Maybe ET's species can make an appearance again.
Yeah. Well, and is Maz Kanata's around, so
yeah, Maz herself could come over. She could lead the inquiry. Let's go. That's a good idea.
Right?
That's beautiful. If you're not going to show me Yoda, at least show me Maz Kanata.
Oh my God.
Bring me some Yaddle, some
melting minds again. We just feel like, oh my God.
It would. Brilliant stuff. Great analysis here, Ross. Do you have anything else that you want to say about this episode before we head out then?
It's just fun. And, thank you to Greg and Greg from Rebel Base Card and, LJ and Colby from the Colby cast and Mary and all of them for, and the Molders, just all the conversations that we get to have, through a DM group where this didn't hit as strong for me up front. But the momentum that they built and their excitement, I wasn't going anywhere. I'm gonna watch everything anyway. But their positive reinforcement of things, as I like to sit back and question.
Yeah.
I always appreciate that. And, the work that you're doing with each episode, the Star Wars sessions, guys, obviously Dan and Coffee with Kenobi and the CWK Alliance, like just the fandom making this stronger as it gets to play out. And we have a different style of storytelling from a really tremendous storyteller. So thank you to Leslie Headland and everyone who's working on this.
Here. Can't wait for next week's episode already. This is like, as soon as an episode gets done, I'm like, how can they make me wait another week?
Yeah.
Somehow we have to. Unfortunately, because of the time of the recording this, and when the episode is released, it'll only be 2 days until we have that wonderful Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, or wherever else in the world you may be, folks. Ross, where can the folks find you online and the Album Cockpit Podcast if they want to hear what you're doing on that front?
Yeah, and podcast episodes have been slow, but that doesn't mean that the property at large, especially on Instagram, so Album Cockpit Pod, uh, I just got to go to the Do the Right Thing Way in Brooklyn, so got the pictures of the street sign,
Mm-hmm.
uh, bugging out the character, portrayed by Giancarlo Esposito
Yeah.
35 years ago. There's a great street art version of him up on a wall. So these are the sort of posts that I put up there. Um, Notorious B.I.G. and some of his background in Brooklyn. Pictures of the steps that he grew up on outside his house, and the diners that he would go to with all of his folks. That storytelling. And I also got here's something that I don't think I've told you yet. I got another picture. So Foo Fighters' Sonic Highways album and the HBO series that they did, doing 9 tracks in 9 different cities. I was able to knock out a front door picture of another studio that they recorded a song in. And the Magic Shop is no longer there
Mm-hmm.
because of gentrification and rents being so expensive in New York.
Yeah.
But the address is still there. So I got a picture in front of that studio door. So I now have New York done, Nashville, Seattle, and Chicago. So
5 more to go.
yeah. So we're and I know Inner Ear in DC or in Northern Virginia is no longer there. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another one where I'm just gonna have to go get the house.
You just go around the area. Yep.
Um, but yeah, you know, I'm not just a collector of items. Like, I want those experiences, and hey, here's that piece of the story that I can insert myself into. And that's
Yeah.
a lot of what the Album Cockpit Podcast is. When it is the podcast that we will eventually be talking Scorpions on.
One day.
It's about experiencing that. What does this album mean? What does track by track mean for the storytelling? And what part did it play in your life, kind of thing. And that's important to me. And obviously you're doing that through Star Wars here. And I love how you and a bunch of our friends all do that. But it gives us something a little additional to cling on to and find ways of saying, hey, you know what? Here's where we have more things in common. And it's just great storytelling of our day-to-day lives.
Here. Wonderful work. And like you said, you may not be doing an episode, but you're always on your Instagram. I feel like you're always at a concert, Ross. you check out the live music scene like no tomorrow. I'm always thrilled to see, like, all right, Ross is checking out this group tonight. Oh, there's some videos. I love it.
Yeah. No, recently it's been the Flaming Lips, Lucinda Williams, Everclear.
I saw the Everclear one. I was like, yep, Santa Monica, baby, it's coming.
Yeah. So it's great to see them. Got a good friend here in a band called Fern Murphy, and they are a stargazer, shoegazer band.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be playing again soon. So something more will come up there. But yeah, it's experiences. It's going to see Springsteen at Wrigley with Dan Zare.
That's right. Memories that last a lifetime.
And music like Star Wars can bring us together.
Amen to that.
And it's how you take the approach, because it can also be divisive. But I'll choose friendship and growing relationships more than saying, oh, that's not good.
That's right.
If I'm not a fan of it. So again, community is great. And what you and Force Ghost Conversations provides to community, that's what should happen. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. The real turbo lover is the friends we've made along the way.
Right.
If anybody knows Judas Priest, hit me up. So thank you so much, Ross, for coming on the podcast and for chatting all about this incredible episode here. For the folks at home, we'll of course be back next week with a brand new episode talking about episode 7. And Ross, without knowing, you actually kind of hinted out our next guest for next week. We've got Greg the other Greg from Rebel Base Card, Ion Cannon, Greg Cass, will be on to chat about that episode. So be on the lookout for that in your podcast feeds next Sunday then. And until then, may the force be with you. Take care.